Hey, wonderful fourth grade teachers. I'm here just to give you a little helper video on how to effectively utilize Think Up Math in your classroom. So, first thing I want to do is I want to look for alignment with my actual TEK to make sure which questions I select are completely first and foremost aligned. So in this case, I'm looking at 4.3D, which is comparing two fractions with different numerators and different denominators and representing the comparison using the symbols greater than, equal to, or less than. So once I really look at my TEK, I'm going to first of all look over and see, okay, how many questions are actually aligned. And in this case, looking at it, we actually are looking pretty good so far as everything. We've got, of course, the three symbols going on here. Really looking at it, it is different numerators or different denominators. And looking at the release star questions, we are similar. I will get back to the release star questions in a minute about one thing about this TEK, but I want to kind of take it one step at a time. But really just looking at it, it really, so far as what the TEK says, it is aligned. So starting with that, now, the next thing I want to do is out of my aligned questions, I want to then find two that are super similar. So for example, I'm looking actually at number 1 here, and it's asking which is a correct comparison. We have a little fraction strip chart. And then over here on the next page, number 3, also we're looking for a true comparison. We have a fraction strip as well, not the entire set, but still we have a very similar question here. So what we suggest doing is doing the first question whole group, and the teacher is really modeling how to think through the problem as well as strategies for the problem. So for example, first strategy I would have my students do is actually label their fraction strips, label what's going on here first and foremost. Then we'd actually look into the question, and it's talking about which is a correct comparison with 7/10. Well, from there, I would have them look at A, and it says 10/12 is greater than 7/10. I would have them go and shade their 10/12, and then I would have them shade their 7/10 so they could easily visually compare the two to see which one, if they're equal to, if they're greater than or less than, so I can make that comparison. And as you can see in this case, those are the only two fractions they even need to shade to compare. So really, if they shade those two, they would be good to go. So I'm guiding them through the thinking process, how to attack that problem. Then I'd be like, hey guys, guess what? Look at number 3 on page 112. What do you notice? Oh, we notice it looks very similar. Okay, great, awesome. So let's do the same exact steps that we just did, that you wrote down and you modeled with me on number 1, page 111. Let's do the exact same process on number 3. Okay, great. Now in this case, there are 3 fractions versus 2. So I would discuss that with them, but it still would be the same shading process as well. So once again, I would be walking around at this point, monitoring the progress of my students. If you've been trained on aggressive monitoring, you can aggressive monitor, really truly seeing, okay, are they even labeling correctly? Do we have students, like really and truly, that right there will be a huge indicator right there. Do you need to be pulling that student in small groups just to work on labeling their fraction pieces? Do they have an understanding of fraction sense? Second of all, are they shading it correctly? Looking at each step in each process. Are they able to, once they've done all that, are they able to look at that and determine their final answer? Do they understand the greater than, less than symbols? Are they just flip-flopping them, looking for those misconceptions? So really and truly, there's a lot you can be looking at, and literally your small groups can be driven by this one question. And speaking about just one question, let's talk about grading. First of all, please don't just use this as a worksheet, as a grade. Like, for example, don't just say, okay, I want you to do page 111, 112 silently, independently, it's for a grade. Okay, this is typically harder than STAR. The rigor is very high. The students need that modeling and thinking through and really helping them make the connection between one question and another. Now, I'm not saying you couldn't take this question for a grade, but let's talk about that. This could be more than 1 check or 1 X easily. You could give them credit just for if they labeled their fraction strips correctly. That could be 1 check. You could even, if you wanted to, for each row. It's up to you how you want to do that. But once again, we want to support that growth mindset and have the students really trying. Okay, maybe they are really struggling with fractions, but if at least they can label this bad boy, let's give them some credit for that, right? And then we'll work on the next steps from there. The next check or X you could give them is, did they shade the fractions to represent them correctly? And then the final check or X you could give them is, did they select the correct answer? So you have a minimum of 3 questions here, and really and truly, I would give them probably for shading each one, because that's a big deal. Do they understand how many out of how many should be shaded to represent each one of these fractions, the part to the whole? So really looking at that as well. So you can get, you could get a lot out of this one. So you might do this one and maybe one more that's a different representation, but you can get plenty of questions easily and get a grade to where they're not going to be more than 10 points each. We want them, no more than 10 points each. Less than 10 is even better per question, but really and truly multiple questions, getting creative from 1 question. Now, so with that said, from there, we also want to talk about a little more alignment with STAR. So looking at the release questions, this is a 2019. If you look, every single one, there's a model in 2017, but we've got a mix here, kind of the two. Looking at it overall, there are more without models than with, but there are with models. So once again, as I said, these are aligned. Having the models is just fine. But as you can see, there are plenty that did not have models. And so the one thing from this particular TEK with this resource is every single one of them have a model. Even though it might not look like it, it refers to the model above. I've really looked through. We've got models all over the place, which is great for their thinking. We want to show them these models, but you're going to also want to expose them to some without models. And I know what you're thinking now. You're thinking, oh my gosh, how are these kids supposed to get it without the models? You've got those babies that need it. We want to talk about fraction sense and comparing to benchmark fractions, and there's tons of strategies for this TEK specifically, but let's also remember our designated supports as well over here. So for example, let's just say it just looked like this, okay? You could even literally just take the model out if you need to. Which comparison is true? You might need to rewrite that a little bit, but literally we could take this, and once again, we could show our babies, this is a designated support right here that they could use. You would have to teach them, of course, and work with them in small group how to fill out this fraction strip correctly. But then they can literally use this to compare fractions. You can do different things with them. You can have them shade if you want, but on STAR, if you don't, you could make multiples of these, or you could just guide them to use their little place value blocks to represent the end of that fraction. It's up to you how you want to do it. Shading is great too, but this is just another little technique that you could use. So for example, I want to look and see, is 3/4 greater than 3/8? So I've marked where 3/4 would end. I have marked where 3/8 would end, and I can very quickly see that 3/4 is larger. It's much longer than 3/8. So once again, this is an allowable support on STAR, but we have to train our students to use these and how to apply this support with this type of question. We can't just throw it at them and say do it. We've got to really give them that support. But anyways, I just wanted to tie that in, keeping track of the students that need the designated supports. But and I just wanted to also just talk about alignment with STAR. Yes, these are aligned, but then looking, since there are some without models, we definitely want to expose them to questions without models as well. Now, talking about some other things available in here. We have our vocabulary mastery. This is great if you want to do like a choice menu. This is something the students should be able to do independently, not with a lot of help, and silently. You have your concept exploration. This is a great explore, but don't forget to bust out the manipulatives. For example, or where they go, hold on, beep, 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 beep. Hold on, I'm coming. Sorry, guys. Instead of just them having the fraction strip there, give them the actual pieces to start. We want to start with that concrete, and then we can get to the pictorial, and then eventually to the abstract. And now some of our babies might need to stay here, and that's okay. We also have blank fraction pieces that are allowable on STAR as well, and every campus has them. If you don't have them, you let me know because they're somewhere. We ordered them last year. Sorry, I'm kind of going off a little bit here. So yes, for the Explorer, these are great explorers, but make sure to still put manipulatives in their hands to go along with these explorers. Another thing I want to talk about is the motivation station. It's really good. They're typically really easy to set up stations that don't require a lot of prep time. You can laminate some and keep them as a spiral station as well. The kids like them. They're fun. They're good stuff right there. Now, talking about motivation math for homework, or Think Up Math for homework, we really would prefer you not to, because the rigor is higher and the students do struggle with it. If they're taking it home, if they're already struggling with it, and then they're taking it home and they're struggling at home, and typically a lot of our parents don't know how to help them or don't know the strategies that we want them to be using. Or they just do it for them. So they're either getting no help and still confused, or their parents are just doing it for them. And so we really want to level the playing field when it comes to homework. So be careful with this. Just saying, oh, do page 113 and 114 for homework. Please be very careful with that. Dreambox is a great option for homework because it differentiates and it gives help and support online. If you would like more information on that or help with how to utilize it for homework, Jillian and I would love to chat with you. But I just wanted to kind of touch base on that as well. Now, if they didn't finish it and they had a question to finish in class, that's a different story. We understand that for sure. Also, don't forget we have our beautiful TE. There are ideas for formative assessments in here, interventions, different activities. It's very useful, so definitely take advantage of that and look through that as well. I've been talking too long though, so I'm gonna stop so this video isn't too long. But we appreciate everything you guys do, and just really want you to kind of think about this and be super intentional with this. It's a great resource, and it can really help your students' thinking. I will talk to you soon.